Vamos a hablar de aranceles, entrevista que va a hacer mi compañero Pedro Fontaneda. Muy buenas tardes, Pedro.
Muy buenas tardes. Efectivamente, vamos a hablar de esos aranceles y hemos visto el efecto directo sobre las bolsas, sobre los mercados en ese sector de la automoción. Saludamos ya a Octavio Marenzi, CEO y cofundador de Opimas. Hello, Octavio.
Hello, how are you?
How are you? Thank you very much for being with us today. Everyone is talking now about tariffs. What is the one question that no one is asking, Octavio?
Well, I think the real question is how the Republicans think they're going to pull this off at the ballot box. So it's going to be a very interesting thing. I think Trump is made a lot of noises. There's a lot of bluster. He has, however, very repeatedly said that his great role model is President McKinley from the early 20th century and late 19th century. And that's someone he cites on and on again. And I think that's a pretty frightening kind of prospect to look at that, because McKinley did bring in some very, very heavy tariffs. They were very unpopular. People hated them. The Republicans lost a terrible electoral defeat as a result of McKinley's tariffs, and it's hard to see how that's not going to repeat itself. The other thing that's very frightening about Trump and McKinley is that McKinley had a very, very aggressive foreign policy overall. He started the Spanish-American War, he invaded the Philippines, Hawaii, all sorts of other places, and started a very, very nasty, vicious phase in American foreign policy. So that's not exactly a great example to go after. But the real question is, how is he going to pull off inflation? How is he going to prevent inflation getting out of control? If he puts tariffs and there's counter tariffs, price is going to go up in America. There's no way about it. That's absolutely the direct, immediate consequence of those kinds of tariffs that he's going to put in place. I don't see how he pulls it off.
Do you expect to come from the April the 2nd?
Well, I have no idea, because it changes just constantly. So it's constantly shifting. Every day there's a new bunch of announcements, new things happening. In all likelihood, I think Trump will back down on a lot of the tariffs that he has announced, whatever they are now. I can't even keep track of which tariffs he's putting into place or taking out of place and which products he's targeting or which countries. It changes just constantly. And I think we'll see on the 2nd of April is basically more of the same. I think it's going to be muddling. There's going to be some countries, some tariffs, but not all of them. He's going to delay them, and there's going to be promises of negotiations, and I think that's what we're going to see. So a very, very messy outcome, no clarity of any sort, and he's just going to sort of extend this exciting phase for a few more weeks or a few more months even.
What should we be looking out for if these tariffs do end up taking place? And on the other hand, if Trump and those countries can break a deal or concessions, what will the markets and everyday Americans be looking like?
Well, if Trump is able to successfully use the threat of tariffs to actually reduce tariffs and get tariffs down to closer to zero, or a reduction across the board with all the trading partners, well, that's going to be very good, I think, for everyone. It's going to be good for the US consumer. It's going to be good for European manufacturers, European consumers. I think everyone will come out a winner. Everyone comes out a winner out of lower tariffs and lower trade, increased trade back and forth between countries. So if Trump's really able to do that, then fantastic. That's going to look very good. However, if you listen to what he's saying things like, I want to get rid of the income tax in the US and basically have importers, or he talks about foreign countries paying the tax. He doesn't seem to understand who actually pays tariffs even. I mean, it's not foreign countries that pay taxes, it's the importers who pay the taxes. That means domestic companies are going to have to pay that bill. So there's a bit of confusion there on his side. But I think if you listen to that, it looks like he thinks tariffs are a very long-term economic tool that he's going to use. And of course, no country wants to look like it's being pushed around by the US or anyone else, so they'll retaliate. So we'll see both tariffs, we'll see a trade war, and it's going to be very messy. And then I think he'll back down. But we're going to take a deviation for 6 months to a year until that happens. And it's going to be, I think, very unpleasant in the meantime.
The Fed keeping rates the same and the incoming tariffs, what's the opportunity now for the investors?
Well, the Fed is basically saying we're going to wait and see what happens. They're talking about uncertainty, so they're not really sure what to do. We have seen recently that the inflation rate in the US is still running higher than they'd like it to be. the core inflation rate is still above 3%. I mean, there's been some reduction in energy prices, so that brought the headline inflation rate down a bit, but not very much. So it's basically, we're looking at a situation where the inflation rate is the same as it was now, I think, in June 2023. It's basically been 1.5 years, or more than 1.5 years, where it's barely budged at all. So it's still above the target the Fed would like. If you now add tariffs on top of that, well, inflation's off to the races then, and is going to increase. And the Fed will have little choice but to then increase interest rates to try and rein that in, even though that inflation won't have been caused by their monetary policy. And they've done enough to stoke up inflation through basically printing more money. But in the case of tariffs, it wouldn't be directly their fault. But they're going to try and then have to rein that in and make sure that doesn't get out of control. I think it looks very messy. If they have to then increase interest rates, it's going to be pretty bad for the economy. It's going to be quite bad for the markets. It's going to be bad for bond prices. So you have to take that into account as you look at investing there.
Octavio Marenzi, CEO, cofundador de Opimas. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you so much.